Hello, my name is Emily Counts, and I am the head of school for Rhyme and Reason Academy. I was going to talk today about the planes of development. This is Maria Montessori's theory of childhood development, and it guides everything, every decision that a Montessori teacher would make within the classroom. This is one of the underlying philosophical principles of the Montessori method. From her book, From Childhood to Adolescence. To consider the school as a place where instruction is given is one point of view, but to consider the school as preparation for life is another. In the latter case, the school must satisfy all the needs of life. She did not consider school merely a place where a teacher would fill the child's mind with stuff. She considered school and education as preparation for life. What does it mean to be prepared for life? What kind of life? And she had a very opinionated view on what this meant. It was an adult life, an adult as a fully developed human being. It was a good life where you're able to live and pursue your happiness, to set goals and succeed, to pursue values. And in order to do all those things, you had to be independent in mind, body, and spirit. So how do you prepare someone for this happy adult life where they're independent? And the answer to that is the Montessori method. These are the 4 planes of development. There are only 4. And in each one, they're 6 years long, and they're subdivided by 3 years. So you have 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, and so on. In each one of these planes, the child is developing in a different domain of life. In the previous ones, they're working on those things too, but the focus of the child's energy is different in each plane. The first plane, infancy, is from 0 to 6, and the child is going to be focusing on physical independence. They're going to be focusing on how they move their bodies. The next plane, childhood, sometimes called elementary. This is where they're trying to gain mental independence, trying to understand the world and think for themselves. Adolescence, they're finding social independence. Where do I fit in the world? Who am I? And then in maturity, the last plane of development, this was going to be moral independence. What is good and true about the life and in world? So these planes, they're subdivisions. The first part is development. They're going to be taking in a lot of information, really stretching themselves. And in the second half of the plane, they're going to be consolidating. They're going to be putting all of those experiences together in order, discarding what doesn't work and embracing what does. Most of this is implicit. They don't, the 3-year-old doesn't know that they're consolidating their life's efforts, but this is through observation, through scientific observation, what we see children doing. This is our interpretation of that evidence. The first plane, physical independence. None of us really remember this age clearly, but if you have a child, then you can know what this is like. The newborn in the developmental stage from 0 to 3 is very incapable of a lot of things. They're unable to move. They can't roll over. They can't sit up. They're, wherever you place the baby is where they're going to stay for the most part. They can't communicate with us in a complex way. They can't even feed themselves properly. We have to bring the food to the child. So, that's where we're starting with human development. The child in the first plane of development is very concrete bound. They explore the world through their senses. As you know, babies will put everything in their mouth. They like to make noises and hit things, and they're using their bodies to explore the world. At this age, they also don't understand the difference between real and imaginary. They're very literal. a child of this age is not particularly interested in working or playing with other children. Instead, you'll observe parallel play. The two children will sit next to each other and be working on their own thing, playing with their own thing by themselves, and maybe enjoying someone's company, but they're not collaborating on that play. They're parallel play. The 3 to 6 range, the consolidation, you have the catchphrase, "I'll do it myself," right? The child has reached a level where they can speak and move and feed themselves. They have a finer development of gross and fine motor skills, and they're refining their perception. So it's less blunt force, eating everything. They can look at things and inspect them a little better. In the first plane, when a child does not gain this independence, you'll see something like what at the beginning of The Secret Garden, Mary doesn't dress herself and she can't entertain herself. Mary in The Secret Garden hasn't moved out of the first plane. She hasn't properly developed in the first plane. In the second plane, we have intellectual independence. The first stage of development is from around 6 to 9. And there's a lot of imaginative play. They develop their first real friendships. They ask why all the time, and they begin to think abstractly. They're able to move past these concrete bound age. In the consolidation stage, from about 9 to 12, they can read independently for knowledge. They do big work. They want to know about the biggest things. They want to do the largest multiplication problem. They enjoy difficult problems and puzzles, and they care very much about the right answer. I remember myself of this age, I liked puzzles, and I wanted to read every book in my school library. That was what I wanted to do. I had a very fantastical imagination. I would build little fairy houses out in the woods behind our house. It was just silly things like that, and that's typical. It's typical development for the second plane child. At this age, children like to work together, and they're doing cooperative and collaborative work, and they're able to understand the difference between real and imaginary. This is about the age when they stop believing in Santa if they've been told that Santa Claus is real. If the child is maybe delayed in development for the second plane of development, they still have a dependency and they're not independent. You see a lot of them second guessing themselves. They're always asking someone to check their work. The Montessori materials are self-correcting, so this helps them develop the ability to not ask someone else. They can ask reality if they're correct. The second plane child who has a lot of dependency is unsure, and in a broad sense, they're asking to be told, what should I think? And we want to move the children away from that. We want them to think for themselves. The third plane of development is about social independence. What do you remember about this age from 12 to 18? This is middle school and high school. There's lots of awkwardness about social interactions. The children will care very much about whether their friends are boys or girls. They don't care as much in the elementary classroom. They'll join a lot of clubs, do a lot of extracurriculars. They're very interested in being part of something. What the child is trying to do in the third plane of development is figure out who they are within complex social groups. So there's a lot of energy spent on belonging, spent on fitting in. They're going to wear, the clothes that their friends wear. They want to dress in a certain way. Maybe they're wearing all black or all pink, right? They're trying to look apart. They're going to be spending a lot of energy on this. They're going to be fixating a lot on labels that define the group you're part of. I'm one of the smart kids. I'm an athlete, right? They're going to be ascribing social labels to themselves, and they're going to be ascribing those labels to others. They're going to be trying to understand their role within society, the larger society. So not just within their peer group or within their family, but they're going to go out into the community and get a job. They're going to, understand, what do I want to do with my life? Who am I going to be when I grow up? and they're going to be moving away from their family. Not in a bad way, but they're going to be getting physical independence in this way. They're going to start driving a car. They're going to start going over to their friend's house and having these sorts of sleepover things. They're going to be trying to just move away from this sheltered experience and trying to explore some more. When independence doesn't develop in the third plane, you're going to be seeing children who follow the group. So they're going to do what the group does. They're going to say what they say. They're going to think what those people think. They're going to be staying dependent on their family for transport and money. So it's just sort of arrested. They're not fully getting themselves out into the world and exploring what it's going to be like to be an adult. This is practice for adulthood. The fourth and final plane is where the adult is. They're going to be achieving moral independence. I remember of this age of myself, I had very black and white thinking. There was very little room for nuance. Either you recycled or you were a monster. And this is pretty typical. You're going to find young adults, in college, who are very passionate about issues. They're going to be very passionate about right and wrong and who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. That's very typical of this age. And they're also going to be very interested in making a difference. They're going to be interested in changing the world to make it a better place, because that's a moral evaluation, a better place. A child who, well, at this point, a young adult who doesn't fully gain independence in this moral range will be intellectually dishonest. So they'll hear information that's contrary to what they believe, and they'll disregard it as evil. They won't consider another person's point of view, because it's black and white thinking. And then you could also see residual arrested development from the previous plane. So they're unable to cook and clean for themselves from the first plane. They're unsure of themselves, what they want, what is true, and they're unsure where they belong in the world, what they want to do with their lives. So I'm sure you've met people of varying degrees who demonstrate both independence and dependence in all of these domains. And this was Maria Montessori's conception of how you develop independence and why you would see people who don't develop independence. How can we help as parents and educators? We're trying to help the child have a good life. So that's what we want. We want them to pursue their dreams and achieve happiness and human flourishing. So we want them to have independence in physical, intellectual, social, and moral realms. So for each plane, helping a child with independence is going to look very different. And the first plane, from 0 to 6, you're going to help them with you're going to have them do practical life activities. They're going to cut some of their own food, maybe like a banana with a butter knife. They're going to help clean things, right? You want to help them develop physical and self-care independence. In the second plane, you're going to let them solve problems with you, feed their thirst for knowledge, and figure things out for themselves. The elementary curriculum is really focused on this. The third plane, you're going to give them productive outlets for social life. Maybe that's work, volunteering for something that's important to them, clubs. It's giving them a way to find their place in society that's safe, instead of maybe a default that's less safe. And the fourth plane of development, they're an adult. Talk to them about things that you think are important in the same way you would treat any other adult. You're going to help them develop, sort of this nuanced thinking. You're going to help them move out of the black and white. This is good, this is bad. Help them, see more sides of an issue, because a lot of things are pretty complex. So those are the ways that you can support independence in these 4 planes. I hope this quick overview was helpful. And maybe you learned something about dependence and independence in Montessori's 4 planes of development theory.